This is a familiar painting to people who've come to the Clark. Tell us a little bit about who Boldini was. His work looks like it's impressionistic, and he knew the impressionist painters, was friends with some of them, but he's not normally grouped with them.
No, absolutely. In fact, this is part of what we want to investigate in this exhibition, is how Boldini fits into the period, in effect, because he was, of course, an Italian artist. He was born in Ferrara, which is in northern Italy, and moved to Paris in 1871. At that point, he didn't really know anyone there. He wasn't sort of connected with other artists, so it's in part a question of him trying to figure out how to make his way.
Right.
You know, how to become an artist, how to make money, essentially, and also what kinds of other art to look at. So in 1871, of course, the Impressions themselves hadn't really organized as a group. And what Boldini began to look at was more established artists like Meissonier. And I think in a painting like Crossing the Street, which is actually from about 1873-75, you get an interesting, really fascinating combination of sort of the very, if you know a bit about Ernest Meissonier, a very famous, very successful French artist of the period, he painted in great detail, often very small pictures. And so you get a lot of detail. For example, you can read the street sign, you can read the shop signs in Crossing the Street, but it's also handled in a fairly free manner. The cobblestones, for example, the woman's dress. And my sense is that Boldini was really looking at all of these different types of art and synthesizing a lot of different ideas into his own paintings.
Right. You've had the Boldinis here for a long time, collected by the Clarks. Why this show now? What was it? Well,
in fact, I played with the idea of calling the show The Unknown Boldini, in a way, because I think it's going to show a side that is less familiar. We do know many of the paintings of the Clark. They tend to look much like Crossing the Street in their level of detail, their relatively small size. But the breadth of Boldini's work really hasn't been examined. Certainly not in the US. The last exhibition in the US was over 20 years ago. And it actually focused only on the late period of Boldini and not these early pictures. So again, I wanted to look at a period that's less well known than his later portraits and much more varied than you might be aware of.